I'd like to call the June 20, 2023 Board of Commissioners Business Meeting to order. As usual, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight I've asked Shannon McCormick to lead us.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deanna, could you please do the roll call?
Catherine Carter, Vice President.
Here.
Liz McNaney, Commissioner. Martha Similaro, Commissioner. Here. Ruth Damsker, Commissioner.
here.
Sandra Zadell, Township Manager.
Here.
Megan Weaver, Assistant Township Manager. Here. Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor. Here. Isaac Kessler, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police. Here. Nathan Crittenden, Finance Director. Here. Van Reeker, Zoning Officer.
Here.
And it is noted that President Denise Hall is absent.
Thank you, Deanna. Lauren, were there any executive sessions?
There are no executive sessions to report.
Thank you. This evening, we have Shannon McCormick. Next up, we have Shannon McCormick to the podium, who is a board member of the Montgomery County LGBT Business Council Women. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shannon McCormick. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Community Outreach and Events Coordinator for the Montgomery County LGBT Business Council. I first want to thank the Upper Gwynedd Council for allowing me to speak briefly tonight in regards to some of the resources that the Business Council has to offer the Upper Gwynedd community and surrounding businesses. So I've been a member of the board on the Business Council since March of this year. My day job is I underwrite mortgages for Toll Brothers. I've been a resident of North Wales for 30 years and have spent many nights as a kid playing basketball in summer league on those courts out there. It's familiar driving by, and swimming at the Norgwen pool with my brother. I'd like to also acknowledge and thank Upper Gwynedd Township for raising the Pride flag this month. For many people in the LGBTQ community, the Pride flag represents a sign of safety. When I'm out somewhere and I see a Pride flag, I know I can relax a little bit and that it's a safe space and I won't be judged. With a lot of the backlash that we've seen in the news lately with companies pulling back on some of the merchandising and the Pride celebrations, it's nice to know that the LGBTQ community is being supported, even when some people in the community may not see a need for it. So having the unwavering support of the Upper Gwynedd Township means a lot. I can tell you that we see you and we thank you. The Monco LGBT Business Council started out of an incident of workplace discrimination and has since developed into a business inclusivity and resource management one-stop shop. Unfortunately, discrimination is still a very real thing in the workplace and even in our community. Many trans people experience blatant housing discrimination, even job hiring discrimination. It shouldn't be this hard to simply live life. The Business Council is aimed at trying to level the playing field in these areas through the LGBTQ business awareness, promotion, and providing these supportive businesses and community resources to the Montgomery County area. The Council's mission is to create networking, social, and business opportunities for LGBTQ plus business professionals and allies in Montgomery County, and we do this through several means. First, by partnering with local LGBTQ-owned and allied businesses to promote their services and products. Each business that joins the council has to sign a pledge. So they're pledging that they will ensure that the LGBTQ community are included in the workforce and that they will welcome, accept, and respect the LGBTQ community. The Business Council, in turn, helps promote these businesses through public networking events, social media posts, and featuring them on our Business Gateway portal. We also offer free job training postings and other perks for each of our partnering companies. The second main thing that the Business Council offers to the community is providing services and resources through our Business Gateway. The Business Gateway is a great tool. It's on our website. We offer the community services and goods that are LGBTQ friendly. I'm getting married in September. I plan on wearing a suit to my wedding. I have mixed feelings about going to just any store, any shop, feeling like I might be judged for the way I feel comfortable dressing. And I found a great store through our Business Gateway in Ambler, Tony Laguda's Formal Wear, who's a business council member. And I've been working with Frank there for several months to help me look my best on my wedding day and feel secure. And I would not have felt comfortable doing this if I hadn't discovered this on our website. I 100% would rather give my money to a business that supports my community. The Business Gateway is a tool on our website where a person can search by business type with everything from electricians to funeral homes. The Business Council's webpage also has a resources page for local social services like the Laurel House, Victim Services Center, and the Women's Center of Montgomery County. These are some of the free resources that are all linked up through the page, and it's there to help the community and people that may be struggling or needing help and they don't know where to begin. These are all free services. One other thing that the Business Council does, we host free community events. We recently organized the Lansdale Pride Walk and Pride in the Park. That took place on June 11th, which we estimated to have been attended by about over 500 people at least. It included a Pride Walk down Main Street in Lansdale, and afterwards a celebration in Memorial Park with vendors, food trucks, DJ, moon bounces, free giveaways. This was a free, family-friendly event that we were happy to bring to the community, which hopefully put a spotlight on Lansdale's inclusivity and their local businesses. We do have several other events throughout the year that help the community get together, celebrate diversity and visibility, from family-friendly events like the Pride Walk, and we have the Ambler Fall Fest coming up at Ambler Yards in October. And then we just came off our Masquerade Gala this past May at the Joseph Ambler Inn. So having the visibility at these events, it really does mean everything. I can tell you, as it's something that I wish I would have had as a kid growing up in a small community like North Wales. I feel it's important to take my niece and nephew to events like this. They can see and interact with all different types of people. Lastly, the Business Council also offers cultural competency training for businesses interested in maintaining a culturally diverse workplace so that everyone is represented. This is something fairly new that we're trying to ramp up, and we've had a lot of interest in some of these larger businesses with getting this on board. So we hope to continue that in the future. Lastly, just want to say, when everyone that lives in the community feels like they're represented and seen, we all win. My fiance and I live in neighboring North Wales, and we plan on raising kids here, and we can see the value of being a part of this community, especially a community where we're accepted just the way we are. We hope that our kids are shown tolerance and experience diversity and inclusion in the community that they live in. We're not asking for any kind of special treatment. We just want fairness and equality. Because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings doing the best we can. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for supporting the LGBTQ people that live here in the community through our businesses and by attending our events, and happy Pride Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon, for all that wonderful information and resources, and we really appreciate you joining us this evening. Next up, I'd like to welcome, Scott McCartney to the podium. Scott is a member of our Environmental Advisory Council. Welcome, Scott.
I'd like to thank the commissioners for inviting me here to speak today. I know you have a busy agenda, so I'll try to keep this short. I am vice chairman for the Upper Gwynedd Environmental Advisory Council. So as the name implies, we're advisory only. We're appointed by the commissioners for 1 or 3 years. And we meet once a month to discuss pretty much any environmental issue in the township, where we advise the commissioners or make recommendations. Our primary focuses are stormwater issues. If you live in the township or anywhere in the U.S., really, there's stormwater issues in every community right now. Natural resources, including native trees and plants. That's a big push of ours, to try to get more trees and native plant species.
Scott, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you mind trying to speak into the
Oh yeah,
microphone?
no,
'Cause
can you not
we
hear
have
me?
a large audience that views these videos.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I can only hear you if you're speaking.
Yeah, I've been stuck. I
Okay,
can't hear
thanks,
myself. So,
God.
renewable energy, sustainability, and one of our big programs is public outreach and education. So you might have seen some of our posts. We just did our, I think, third rain barrel event last week. Uh, that we sold out on. So that was a good event. We'll be doing compost, how to build your own compost bin in the fall, and then near Arbor Day we did the native tree giveaway, which also was sold out. And we gave them away, but so during one of our meetings, we were discussing stormwater issues, and the one that came up with pesticide, insecticides, and herbicides, and how they're used by the township, and then what we could do to educate the residents on what they can do to help use these chemicals responsibly. So we put together this memo. We submitted it to the board on May, and they invited me to come here and speak about it. So again, improper use of insecticides, which would be for controlling insects, herbicides for noxious weeds, and pesticides for mice, voles, any other kind of pests that you would have in your yard, can adversely impact our local stream and habitats if not applied appropriately or applied too much. They can affect the invertebrate in our waterways, and there's a basic food chain for a lot of other species. So it can have a really negative impact. And I don't know if, hopefully everybody here knows, I don't know if a lot of people generally know that the storm sewers in Upper Gwinnett and 90% of, the communities in the U.S. don't go to a water treatment plant first. They go directly to tributaries, streams, creeks, rivers, Chesapeake Bay, Delaware Bay, ocean. So anything that runs off your driveway, your house, your yard goes right into the environment. There's no pre-treatment. There's no treatment anywhere. So this is kind of what brought about this memo for the board and for our residents. So we took a look at what the township did first. They only use 2 herbicides, professional grade and commercial grade, and they use licensed landscapers who are trained to properly use these chemicals. They use them to control invasive plants, especially those that have the potential to create public safety hazards. So you can get certain plants, weeds, vines that will climb telephone poles, power poles that can then pose a safety hazard. So those are the targets most of the time. These professionals will follow all manufacturer directions. They only apply in targeted areas. Again, so they're only going to spray the weeds that they need to. They're not just going to spray the whole parks, open areas, only where it's needed. They're trained in proper mixing, so they'll only mix the amount they need. So there's very little waste, and if there is any extra, that is disposed of properly, not just dumped on the ground. And then they also are well trained on how to avoid spraying near storm drains, water sources, public and private wells, those types. Some guidance for our residents, and we're going to be putting some of this stuff out on through our Facebook post that we submit through the township, the Gazette, and I think we're going to do something in the newsletter, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So, and I know there was some in the spring newsletter already from I think Perkiomen Watershed already had some of this information, because springtime is a good time to remind people, as that's when a lot of people put some of this stuff on their lawn. So again, remind people to always follow manufacturer instructions, especially when it comes to rain. If you put this stuff on too close to a heavy rainstorm, it's just going to wash down the drain. So you're wasting your money, and it's going to impact the environment. So you want to make sure you apply it when it's appropriate. Again, at the same time, the amount and frequency. Over application is just going to run off your yard and not have the effect you want, and then affect the environment. Not near drainage swales. Don't apply near drainage ditches, storm drains, potable water wells. Using hand pulling weeds instead of using chemicals. If you're doing the granules and the spreader, make sure you sweep anything off your pavement into the grass, because that'll just run straight off into the storm drain. And then consider using organic materials. So for organic herbicides, a lot of them are going to include ingredients such as acetic acid, citric acid, citrus oil, clover leaf oil, cinnamon oil, those kinds of things. So those are some organic herbicides you can use. And then organic pesticides will typically have neem oil, cedar oil, certain bacterias that only affect certain pests. um, pyrethrin, which is derived from chrysanthemum. So you probably see that. That's in a lot of bug spray. So that's a organic material, or derived, I should say, from organic material. Capsaicin is also a very good one. That's the main ingredient in pepper spray. So it works at deterring criminals. It also does really well in deterring rodents, especially if you spray it around. If you have a raised garden bed, keep mice away, keep voles away without affecting your food quality. All right. And then just one note though, even organic herbicides, if not applied carefully, can be harmful. So arsenic's naturally occurring, but it's also rat poison. So you got to be careful when you are applying organic materials, because they could also be dangerous. So we'll have this up on our website, and there's some links if you want some more information on it.
Thank you very much, Scott.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the public comments. I know many of you have comments on the Walters Group issue. Just to let you know, it is not on the agenda for any action this evening. Please state your name, and if you're a resident or non-resident, when you come up to the mic, please speak clearly, spell your last name. Thank you for respecting the 5-minute rule and practicing decorum. Our goal is always to give you the most complete and correct answers to your questions from our staff who are experts in each of these areas. For that reason, you have the option of enclosing your email address in the registry if you would like us to reach out to you during the week with a full answer to your question. We had some residents who were concerned that if we answer any questions offline, so to speak, then the residents who wanted to hear the answer publicly would be left out. So we will continue to share any answers to questions that were posed publicly but were answered privately at the following public meeting. First up for the public meeting this evening is Carl Smith. Also, for those of you who are standing in the back, there are plenty of seats up front. For those of you who are standing in the back, there are seats up front.
Yes, Carl Smith, 815 McIntosh Way. Last week, we did listen to another presentation from the Walters Group. Kim Crowder and Joe Clement were present. We listened to them. Joe Clement, the attorney, made 2 statements I would like to get clarification on if I can't get it in a corporate sense. If I can get an email response updating that, it'd be great. So he made a comment that he's been working on this for 4 years. And I brought up the point that the 2040 comprehensive plan was released in August of 2021. That's not quite 2 years. So there's a 2-year overlap. My question is, did the Walters Group, Joe Clement, or the attorney's firm, Whistler Pearlstein, have any influence, directly or indirectly, in developing Upper Gwinned's 2040 comprehensive plan? Pretty straightforward question. So I don't know if you have
No.
the answer to that.
No,
They had
none.
none at all? Okay. He also made another comment. I think I heard him correctly, but I wanted clarification. Maybe Van knows the answer to this. He says, I'd like to know, has there been an official analysis on the properties in that half-mile TOD overlay that are zone light industrial to see if any of them fit the conditions in the draft amendment that would qualify for future residential development? I think I heard Joe Clement say there was not, but I want to get that clear.
No.
There isn't any other
We're gonna
properties?
talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Dan has it on his.
Okay.
to
I'll
talk
look forward
about
to
it on
hearing
his.
that. And so I guess what I'd like to also make a comment about, we've been hearing some feedback from our neighbors in Lansdale. We've been in the form of BJ Bryce, who apparently is a councilman on their board, who comes over here and talks about how we should be planning our development. Well, he characterizes and labels those of us that disagree with him with a pejorative acronym called NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't have a problem with being given the title NIMBY, frankly, especially if we're talking about putting a nuclear waste site in our backyard. I think most of us in this room would be glad to be part of that club. And I think it's an honorable thing to fight for your community. I think even you, Liz, were part of that club when you were fighting, the Horrigan brothers at some point. That's your right as a citizen to do that. That's our right as citizens to do this in our community. So we're here to make our voices heard. But when it comes to Lansdale Borough, the last two major developments that have taken place has been the Madison parking lot and also Luxor luxury apartments at Broad and Vine. From what I understand, those are done at market rate. There was no direct or indirect subsidies, no matter what, Kim, how you want to twist the language when it comes to that. They were not subsidized at all. They're 100% market rate. So why are they coming over here telling us how to develop our properties when to date, they're not doing the same thing? Maybe it's because they know that historically it doesn't work and it isn't going to work here. And then a follow-up to you folks on the commissioner's board, it seems that you're favorable towards this. So in the event that this passes, are any of you going to go over to Lansdale Borough and start giving them moral lectures on how to develop their properties? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Jacob.
Jacob, 229 State Street, Lansdale. I wanted to make a list of all the crimes in our area, but I didn't have time to do that. Has anyone been following the local news lately? There has been an explosion of crime, the kind of crimes that were unheard of a few years ago in North Penn area, a direct result of high density affordable housing. Yes, our wonderful police department has stats on crimes that are reported, but not on crimes that go unreported. For example, I was talking to a small convenience store owner who said he has been having problems with people just grabbing stuff and running out, like it happens in Philly and other such places. I asked him, "Do you call the police?" And his reply to me was no, because it's becoming a part of doing business in our area. Rite Aid and other businesses are also having the same problems with theft, which is not reported. In the meeting with the Planning Commission last week, someone suggested that there is no more open land other than the 6 acres that Walter Group wants to build on. Are people so naive that they do not understand that properties are repurposed all the time? Also was suggested that paying interest on a mortgage and getting a tax credit for that was somehow a subsidy. No, it's not. It's credit for something we have paid for, not getting the tax credit for free. If it was for free and paid by other taxpayers, it would be considered subsidy or subsidized. Another thing, it is hypocritical and awfully disingenuous for Lansdale representatives of Lansdale Borough to be advising or telling anyone in Upper Gwynedd what we should be doing on housing when their borough and their representatives completely ignored the affordable housing agenda when they approved Madison and Luxor. So please don't come here with your hypocritical advice to us, trying to somehow portray a moral superiority. It's pathetic. Get off your high horse. Walter Group has only one interest, profit. If anyone thinks they're doing this to help people, they are naive. They don't care about Upper Gwynedd or its residents. It's all about profits. Walter Group could have applied for zoning variance or spot zoning, but they did not, because the chances to get it approved with the zoning variance or spot zoning are next to nil. So they sneakily are trying not to get a change to the zoning for only the 6 acres land, but they're actually trying to change the zoning code itself by changing the text to the zoning code. Hence, it's called text amendment. Changing the light industrial zoning by changing its very text will include, if this is adopted by the commissioners under a subcategory housing, and any builder in the future who wants to build high density affordable housing anywhere in the TOD map cannot be refused as long as they meet the square footage, parking spots, etc. Residents of Upper Gwynedd need to understand this is a permanent change to the zoning code itself, which cannot be undone. The 60 units might not hurt us, but change to the text of the zoning code will destroy our township in the future. To the commissioners, listen to the people when they are saying we like our township the way it is. Don't destroy it, just to feel like you did something as a board of commissioners. You were not elected to solve other boroughs or townships' housing problems. Listen to your residents here. Thank you.
Next up, Pat Pino. Pat Pino.
I'll have to lower this here. Can you hear me? Okay. Pat Pino. I lived in Upper Gwynedd since '99, and I like it here. Some of this is going to relate to what's going on in the township, but basically, I wanted to go through some stuff about the Constitution, and it's just abbreviated because it's too much to read. Okay. Excuse me for not making eye contact because I have to read my notes. I don't have it memorized. Okay. All elected officials take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States was created to give government limited powers. The Federalist Papers were written to explain in detail the intent of the United States Constitution. Sovereign means no one person is above you except God. All citizens and the states were meant to be sovereign according to the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. The government has specific and limited powers. If their powers are not specifically listed in the Constitution, then they don't have that power to do so. Article 6, Clause 2. The Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be made in pursuant thereof and shall be the law of the land, which means anything unconstitutional is notwithstanding and shall be made null and void. The 10th Amendment. Any powers not specifically listed or any that have been forgotten to be listed in the Constitution are prohibited. Only the powers of the government specifically listed in the Constitution are valid. 14th Amendment defines how you cannot abridge anyone's privileges. You cannot take from one person to give to another. This violates the person's rights that you are taking from. The grant that Walters received from the government is doing exactly that. The grant is from taxpayers' money withdrawn without their consent and given to a special interest group. The government is actually acting unconstitutionally. It has nothing to do with making someone else's life better or acting on behalf of the greater good. It has to do with violating one person's right to appease another person's needs. The government cannot do what any other citizen is not allowed to do by law. It would be considered unconstitutional. 16th Amendment. Only Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes on income. A direct tax, which is your income tax on your wages, is unconstitutional. Try fighting it, but it is. It's automatically deducted without your consent. Only making a profit is taxable. You signed an agreement with your employer to give a service for an agreed upon wage. It is an even exchange, not a profit. An indirect tax is taxable and is constitutional. This would be food, gas, anything tangible that you buy. I know you need food to live, but you are consenting to pay the tax when you buy it. It is a choice. I am all for giving donations to people in need. I do it all the time of my own free will, but it needs to be done voluntarily, individually, or through churches and charities. We are all being forced to pay for many things from our taxes, most of which is unconstitutional. No wonder why our taxes are so high. I don't mean to be sarcastic, but does this seem like socialism to anyone? That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Next up, we have Linda Camborn. Linda Camborn.
Yes. My name is Linda.
Linda, do you mind pushing the button? It says push on the microphone and it should turn the little light green.
Okay,
There we go.
thank
Does that
you.
work?
My name is Linda Camburn and I live at 705 Jackson Street in Lansdale. I have lived in the Stony Creek neighborhood. I am the oldest resident that has lived here for 45 years, going on 46. I moved in here in 1978. I became a single parent by 1983. I worked very hard to maintain my home, which is a single, small Cape Cod that I love. And I raised a wonderful son, a wonderful daughter, and I also buried a daughter. When I became a single parent, I was only part-time. There were people that spoke at the meeting last week that wanted the Pembroke Parkway to proceed because they wanted housing. Their adult children, whether they were college educated, not college educated, they can't afford to get an apartment. It wasn't any easier for me in 1983. I was only part-time. I couldn't afford daycare. I brought my son home from the hospital by myself. I drove from my home, 705 Jackson Street, to my mother and dad's home so that my mother and my dad, Monday through Friday, could take care of my son because I couldn't afford daycare. If I can do it and keep my home, anybody can do it. My son and my daughter, because of the baby that died, are 9 years apart. Even my daughter, this was back in the very, very late 90s. My daughter and her husband and my two, they were then toddlers, grandchildren, they lived with me, so they could afford to get a house. What I'm getting at is my neighborhood has changed. I am the old woman in the neighborhood now. I will be 73. I will be 73 in October. Keeping my house was not easy, but I was able to do it. But with what is happening now, I am sorry. I shouldn't have to say I am sorry, but I feel let down. I feel very let down because the Stony Creek neighborhood and the village at Gwynedd, we are going to be severely affected if and when this goes through. We did have problems in the 1990s with homeless people. And thank God for the Upper Gwynedd Township Police and also the Lansdale Borough Police. They took care of us. I not only am speaking from my heart for myself, but I am speaking for the families, the new generation that I see parents that are in their, I suppose, their 30s. It's wonderful to see new families in with new life, and they don't deserve to have this go through. I am a registered Democrat. I'm almost afraid sometimes to tell my neighbors that. Sorry. But I just feel very let down because, let's face it, the stakes are in the ground. This is going to go up right behind my backyard. I don't deserve it. My son, college educated, whatever. He didn't put himself through college. I'm sorry. He did put himself through college. Started out at Montco and got a Dean Scholarship to Drexel. He had to go part-time and did not graduate, did not get his degree in business until 2012. He gave up a wonderful job because he said, "Mom, I'm just not the type to wear the coat and tie and deal with sharks." He now is a police officer.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am, that's 5.
All right. I guess my 5 minutes is up, but I'm proud of speaking my piece. And when elections come up, mine is not going to be the same as it was a couple years ago. I'm speaking for my neighbors, not just myself. I'm speaking for my neighbors, the young families, my neighbors next door. They're from Algiers and they are citizens. And they have been to some of these meetings. I mean, this is my backyard.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Next up. Renee Armstead.
Okay, for public comment.
Good evening. My name's Renee Armstead. I live at 317 6th Street. It's really not North Wales. It's Upper Glen. I'm off of Sweesford Road, that near the William Penn Inn. That inn. I had a question for the board. How many of you are for this building to go through?
Ma'am, we're not at liberty to discuss that right now. We're still listening to all avenues and all
What's the general
presentations.
consensus?
We haven't even discussed
You
it.
can kind of.
There is no consensus. The majority of the board hasn't really seen much of the project other than the presentation that was given a couple of months ago. But the application is going to be coming in front of the board after it's done at the planning commission.
So the stakes are in the ground and no one has any idea of
I
what's
don't know what
going
you're
on.
referencing with the stakes in the
Beg your
ground.
pardon?
We don't know what you're referencing with the stakes in the ground.
One of the neighbors here said they saw the stakes in the ground.
The property owner is allowed to perform surveys if they want. There might have been a survey performed on the property, but there's no approvals yet given.
Okay. My next question. What kind of abatement is this group, Walters Group, receiving?
Okay, you can continue with all your questions and they'll be answered at a later date.
Okay.
You know what? I didn't hear
I'm,
that.
I'm,
What was your question? Abatement?
Yeah.
What kind of abatement is the Walters Group getting?
yes.
Okay.
What kind of break or abatement are they getting?
Okay.
And then, trust me, I'm not against affordable housing. I'm not a, I think people should have decent and affordable housing. However, what I'm against is the overdevelopment of our area. If you look on just what's being discussed tonight, look at all the new buildings that are going up. We're losing our green space. The development of these buildings, you let this one go through, it's no way you can convince me that more buildings aren't going to go up. We have no green space now. It's no reason for every centimeter of space to have a building on it. When my parents moved up here in 1968, it was the development on Sumney Town Pike. It's right in back of my house. That wasn't there. We had all types of wildlife. It was quiet. Now I go to work in my garden, I hear motorcycles roar down the bypass. It's not quiet anymore. And here's another question I have. If you want affordable housing, these other developments that have already been approved, these other apartment buildings, can you give them abatements to provide similar housing for buildings that already exist instead of creating new buildings that take away again our green space?
Renee, I'm Sandra, I'm the township manager. I noticed that you didn't leave an email address, so I'm going to answer your previous question and then try to answer your current question.
Mm-hmm.
So your question was, what kind of abatement is the Walters Group getting?
Yes.
The Walters Group is they're participating in a program. It's called the Low Income Tax Credit Program. And on our website, Megan, I'm going to put you on under the gun. So you can go to our website, and if you go to about and then get the facts, you can see all of the presentations that the Walters Group has done here before the board.
Mm-hmm.
Megan, I think if you click on any of the Walters Group presentations, I don't have them all memorized, but I think they do go over what the low income tax credit program is. It was developed in the 1980s by Ronald Reagan and his team, and has continued through the federal government since that time. And it's LIHTC. That's the program that provides the tax credits to the Walters Group. And that's a program in which they can sell then the tax credits to large banks who then fund the development. They're not receiving any tax abatement from Upper Gwynedd Township. If the Walters Group project is approved, they would pay taxes just like everyone else to the township. So I hope that answered your question.
Kind of, sort of. Then, so with this building coming in, if other buildings come in, my taxes should not be, according to this, my taxes should not be affected and go up, correct?
Well, I mean, I can't predict what's going to happen in the future with taxes. They generally go up at some point because prices go up
No, 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 no,
also.
no, no, no.
So-
But according to what you're saying is that the Walters Group are going to be absorbing all the tax. It should not impact me.
No,
that
that's
what you're
not what
saying?
I said at all. I just was explaining the program which funds the Walters Group's development, which is a federal program. This Board of Commissioners and this group has no
So then
authority on the
okay, let me put it a
taxes.
different way. Are my local taxes going to be affected?
So
With
your local
this-
taxes that you pay are to the school district, the county, and the township. This board only governs the township taxes. I can't speak to county or state or local taxes, but I think we all know that death and taxes are certain. And the price, I mean, for the past, I don't think there's been a tax increase in Upper Gwynedd since 2017. There's not been a tax increase since I've been manager, and there's not been a tax increase on your Upper Gwynedd taxes
I'm
since that
talking about
time.
school tax.
We are
That's the
not,
killer.
we don't control the school taxes.
But you're missing my point.
Okay.
Taxes will be increased when you have more people coming into the community, when you have more buildings being built. That's going to impact our taxes. And I don't want to speak for all the other seniors here, but we're going to get priced out. We're going to get priced out of our homes. Some of us have been here, I've heard people say they've been here for 30, 40. I'm 68 for me. I was the first full class in North Penn High School. So I'm not going to be able to afford to live here if if the taxes keep going up. And that's just a disgrace and a shame for the people who have been here in the community. We're being impacted by this financially. We're losing our green space, and that's all I really have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Zoom commenter. We have a comment that's via
On
Zoom,
Zoom.
so.
Diane, can you hear us?
Yes,
Nice and.
yes, technology works sometimes.
Okay, you may begin. Can you state your name, spell your last name?
My name is Diane. Stressing me out, so I'm quitting my day. My name
No. You're a resident or non-resident?
I am a resident of
Okay, you may begin.
This is kind of unbelievable to me. As somebody who is low income, I get a pension, I get SSDI, I'm on a fixed income, I do work, but I mean, I'm listening, and I know that Creator is good. Creator provides. We spend a lot of time seeming to worry here about paying our taxes and not making certain that these taxes go to the appropriate programs in a dog-eared way for such a rich county, and we are a county unit, not just boroughs. Have a lot of homeless people, and it would be really nice to have some affordable housing. Handing out tents right now. A lot of these people were homeless, and not necessarily drug addicts or anything like that. They're people that lost their job, and they don't have affordable housing. They were priced out of their housing, and they're getting moved around. If you're reading the papers, I don't particularly care about this company. I don't know too much about it. Maybe they're not ethical or whatever. Maybe they are. I understand that they're getting some tax credits. That's probably not a bad thing. But it would be nice to get some affordable housing. What I'm seeing right now is they put some $400,000 houses down the street across from Liberty Bell Park, and they're letting them on fire. They're lighting fires across the street. Come on. Is that what we do? Like that's what I'm seeing as far as in the areas where it's at. Now, is that jealousy, or is that what? I think that there is a need for social programs, that there is a responsibility for the citizens in the taxes to pay for some of this stuff. That things need to be funneled. Not that we need to pay for everybody's everything, but that when things get sent, it needs to go there if we're paying through the nose with taxes. But we have a responsibility to make sure that the taxes go where they're saying they're going, that we hold our public uh, public officials accountable, that things don't go corrupt, and that what people do, they say they're going to do, that there's not a double standard of truth. And I feel very strongly about that. And there absolutely does need to be affordable housing somewhere. And I like the idea of perhaps making some of this housing that's already there more affordable. Where I live now, I live with drop foot, some handicaps. So I lived on the first floor and had to convert my home so that it's better for me as I age into it. And I'm really grateful for where I live. I'm grateful for my neighbors. I'm grateful, uh, just completely grateful. And I think that's what we need to have, is an attitude of gratitude around here. So with that, I will share my time.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment section this evening. We'll move on to our no, I don't.
Okay.
On to our department reports, our manager's report, Sandra Zadell.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Tonight I'm going to talk about, I don't know how many people in the room signed up for our weekly Gazette e-newsletter, but a few months ago I wrote an article for the e-newsletter. Geez, no one wants to hear about it. About the fiscal responsibility that we are practicing here at Upper Gwynedd, and how maintaining a low tax rate is very important to our residents and to the staff. So we have recently made some changes over the past 2 to 3 years to help make sure that we are as efficient as possible. So I'm just going to go through some of those changes we've made and talk about the savings to the taxpayer that we've provided. In 2020, we consolidated some of the township's modest debt to receive a much better interest rate. As you know, at that time, interest rates were much better than they are right now. And because of that debt consolidation, we were able to save almost $65,000 over the term of those loans. This year, we upgraded our Parks and Rec software to a more efficient program that allows us to collect immediately from registrants, which reduces the need for staff to follow up and get payments for events and programs. And it's resulted in a higher collection of the fees for those programs. In 2022, we modified our trash contracts for our municipal complex, which saved $27,000 and capped future price increases to 3%. In 2022, we changed our IT vendor, which resulted in savings of just over $1,300 a month or $15,000 annually. In 2023, we converted all of our streetlights in the township. It's a project, there's a payment for this project on the agenda, to LED streetlights, which have environmental benefits as well as will result in the savings of over $250,000 over the next 20 years in energy cost reductions. And possibly the one I'm most proud of is that since 2020, we have, the board made it clear that a goal was to dedicate ourselves to making sure we actively apply for all grants for any projects that we plan to do. That's resulted in the acquisition of over $2.4 million of grants in just under 2.5 years. Thank you, RVE, who I work with. They do most of the work. I'm like a consultant to you on that. Projects funded include a feasibility study for a walking trail, illuminated traffic and pedestrian signage projects aimed to increase safety and walkability in the township, a Parks and Rec master plan, which is similar to a comp plan but for our park complexes, replacement of the Sumneytown Pike Bridge over the Wissahickon, and the Haynes Run Stream Bank Restoration Project, which is dedicated to reducing flooding and improving water control. So if we hadn't received that $2.4 million in grant funding, those are all very important projects, and we would be paying for those with your tax dollars. So I'm very proud of what our staff has done to become more efficient and more cost effective. And that's what I wanted to report on tonight.
Thank you. Next up, Van.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Reviewing planning and zoning. I'm the zoning officer. So we're going to go through some of the projects that have been discussed previously and those that are currently before the ZHB. ZHB 22-21 Valley Forge Road, Wawa. We've talked about that for months. It was adjudicated. It was approved by the zoning hearing board at their last meeting. You remember it was for this to permit the sale of gas and to authorize a signed package approval, not for site development in itself. That will be coming in later. But the idea that is handled by the zoning hearing board that the property could be converted to a single store, a Wawa store for gas, was approved. Next is 1500 Pembroke Parkway. It's often referred to as the Walters Group. I think of it as a TOD2 residential development. We've been looking at the zoning text and map amendments for that property of about 5.7 acres. It has been, was heard by the Township Planning Commission last week, and it's been continued to be more discussion and perhaps a decision rendered on the Planning Commission July 12th, which would be the Planning Commission meeting next month. Are there questions on that?
Yes.
Okay, fire away.
I have had the opportunity for a lot of residents to reach out and want to meet and talk with me one-on-one about this project. And I appreciate that because it brings up some questions that I wasn't, it wasn't what I was thinking about things. So I encourage anybody to reach out if they want to meet. and talk with me. I provide all the information. And Renee, I do have a copy of one of the Walters, an extra one that, yeah, I'll give it to you before you leave. Over the weekend, I had a lot of conversations. It was fantastic. It's the best part about this being a commissioner is sitting down and talking with people and listening. And Renee, I can answer your question that no, my mind isn't made up because I'm not done listening. I'm not done deciding. And so with that, I just want to make sure that some questions were answered from, so what I understand is with the TOD, you bring it across the street there to that Pembroke area that we're talking about. Only limited industrial zoned areas can be TOD, correct?
Correct.
So a residential area, an R1, can't be turned into a TOD.
That is correct.
Okay. And only TODs near railroad tracks within a half-mile radius,
Well,
It can be
half a
a
mile of the
TOD.
Pembroke Station, to be specific.
a railroad station. Okay. And oh, let me just make sure I asked this right. Does the ordinance, oh, wait, first, the first question. There are some manufacturing companies there that this gentleman brought up earlier on that parcel there. What was the name that I asked, that I told you?
Organon is there.
Organon is there. That is, they're there because they're zoned limited industrial, and that's a big manufacturing or a big company of sorts. So that could not be knocked down and homes be built there. Is that correct?
Well, correct, based on the ordinance, the text says that, among other things, that you cannot be less than 4 or greater than 8 acres. That's specific.
Wait, less than 4, greater than 8 acres?
So there are
Okay.
the curbs in the ordinance. And secondly, that it must be within a half mile of the Pembroke Station. We talked about that. And that the property must be vacant and undeveloped. Vacant and undeveloped. So those are 3 categories that you must meet in order to request. A lot of folks are losing sight of the fact, but it's in the ordinance, that the only way, once the text is amended to permit this use within a specified area of the township, which is probably no more than 120, 140 acres, there then must be a map amendment. So if the applicants happen to be Walters in this case, must then come in and then say, oh, by the way, we want to apply for this TOD amendment, and we have under control 5.7 acres, and we request a map amendment. They're the first to do it. I don't know that there are any others that are that would qualify, any other tracks that are available within the area that we've identified. But if there were, I don't think there are, but if there were, they still would need to come in and receive map amendment first.
But that one building wouldn't get it because it is developed. And so even if it went vacant because it's developed, then it
It
can't
doesn't matter, it would have to be undeveloped.
be undeveloped. So that parcel of land that the Walters Group is looking at is the only undeveloped back there, that 5.7?
It is the only one that's over 4 acres that is vacant and undeveloped. That is correct.
So only that one.
So just to make sure everyone understands that,
Yeah.
that means that this overlay district can't spread, if you were on, say, what's your street? Airy Street, and you're not a limited industrial, and you're not between 4 and 8 acres or whatever, that you don't qualify, and we cannot then turn your neighborhood into an affordable housing development.
Under the TOD2, that would not be possible. That is
Right,
correct.
thanks, man.
So I guess that answers the question. So how does the ordinance amendment prevent the spread of all limited industrial being wiped out all over? So that answers that. So that development there, if approved, would be it would be limited to that 60, because one resident made a good point. He said he counted there could be over 700 homes on that section back across Church Road. But now you're saying it can't be for all those reasons.
No, that would simply not be, that's impossible. that is impossible. On the code that we're looking at, the terms and the curbs and the conditions, the criteria of this code, all zoning districts come with rules and regulations. This has a lot of them. And so under the TOD too, that would not be possible. The only possible would be if the Walters Group is successful in their amendment request. And then they have to get a conditional use and land development approval that they might be able to develop a map. They're saying 60, maybe, if they get that far. But it's a long road. It's a long sort of trip that I look at it, as I said, I think a month ago, for me as a planner, the fact that the Walters Group deals with a special kind of affordable housing, and I may like that or not like it, but I'm dealing with density here. We're talking about who was the first to step up and say, I like this TOD2 concept that's embraced in the comprehensive plan, and that that they could be Pulte homes, WB homes, it could be builders of expensive rental units or for sale units for that matter. The Walters Group deals within a special sort of niche, and you've heard it explained in many times. Someone asked me, why do you think, is there another option? And I heard it mentioned earlier today by Jacob to go to the zoning hearing board.
That was on my list.
Okay. So do you mind if I go ahead and answer that?
No, I was.
Even though you
go
didn't
ahead.
ask the question yet?
No, go ahead.
So the zoning hearing board is basically an appeals board. It's not a board that you would expect legislative decisions to be made at. So they listen to variances, special exceptions, appeals of the zoning officer, challenges to the zoning code. That's what the zoning hearing board does. And very infrequently, they're asked to evaluate a use variance. A use variance is the most difficult, least sought after, and most difficult type of variance to be granted because of the conditions that have to be met, including the applicant must convince a board that the property is currently zoned is undevelopable as zoned, and change of circumstances and a whole list of criteria that would apply to use variances. I think in the 11 years I've been here, there have been 2 granted by the zoning hearing board for small properties, 4 acres and 2 acres. So that's not the route that would normally be afforded to any municipality or any applicant to go to it's a misnomer, I know, zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board hears appeals and requests for alterations to the zoning ordinance. That's their why they were created by the municipality's planning code. Their purpose is to allow relief, not to make legislative decisions relative to land use. So I think most folks, most attorneys, and most planners would say that decisions like this, say a TOD2, are appropriately considered by the governing body. And they either like it, they don't like it, they amend the code, they massage they polish the application to a point where they deem it to be acceptable or not acceptable, but it's legislative decision. It's not, you don't throw it out to the zoning hearing board on an appeal, option. So sorry for the long answer.
Does that give the board more control over how this property then is developed? Like what the next steps are and everything? Does that give us more control than if it-
Right. You control it from the beginning. You control whether or not there is going to be a TOD2. You then control if the map, the site would be, this property would be amended. So that's step number 2. You then control through the conditional use application whether or not they met their burden relative to traffic analysis, impacts on the local properties, sewer, water, that sort of thing. The plan, whether or not the plan meets the zoning regulations. So that's step number 3. And then there's land development, which is sort of concomitant with conditional use, but not every land development needs a conditional use approval. In fact, most don't. So in this case, you would need a conditional use approval and then a full land development approval. And I think you all know by now what that means. It's evaluated by the county, by the township staff, by the planning commissions, engineers, environmental advisory committee, all the groups get to look at it and make recommendations. So that's the land development process. So it's 4 steps. So we've been talking about the first step for the last number of years because that's how it starts. So it's a legislative, for me, it should be a legislative decision by the governing body.
I know, it's on, I turned it on. I'm sorry, I had it off. Isaac told me. Now I lost my, oh, did the Walters Group say that they've been looking at that land for 10 years, over 10 years? They've been working on it?
Kim can say, she may have, because she's looked at property all over the county.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the first time I remember them coming to a meeting was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And the then Plan Review Committee said, we're in the middle of a comprehensive plan. We're not making any land use decisions right now. We're updating then with the guidance of the county and the 20-member advisory board, a comprehensive plan update. So they said, okay, we'll wait and come back years later, which they have done.
Okay, I just had it written down 10 years that they were looking at that property.
Maybe. I mean, I didn't hear 10, but that's
Yeah.
possible.
Did anybody have any other questions? Linda? Linda, can you come up so we can all hear you? Yeah.
Here, you want to use that one?
I just have a, oh, thank you, Van. I just have a question that if there's an existing structure on the property and then it's demolished, does that then count as a vacant piece of property that could be built on? If you have a structure that's existing right now and then it's demolished?
For
For
you're asking me, I
Yes.
would interpret that, no, that it must be vacant and undeveloped.
Okay,
If
so
it were, if it's developed in some fashion and then converted to being undeveloped, that would not meet the criteria within the code.
okay, all right, thank you.
Linda, that was the good question because I was a little confused on that too, so thank you. I think that's all I have for Pembroke right now. Thank
Thanks.
you,
I would
Van.
say I'm done, but I have more to talk about. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Carl Smith also has the question.
So just to follow up on my earlier question, I'm not sure, is there going to be an official analysis on the tract of land in the TOD overlay to find out if there's going to be, if they're going to fit the conditions in this draft amendment for future residential development? The answer is we've looked at it and one tract fits the criteria. So there isn't going to be an official overview taken to see if any other tracts of land. I'm not sure what you mean by official, but I look at this. I work for the township. I work for you. We've looked at the zoning map. We've looked at the properties. We've driven out there. I know what's built. I can look at tax records. I can look at the aerial photographs. And based on the information we have, there's one tract at the moment that would qualify. And that's this subject property. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Should I continue?
You can continue.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. So then just to finish out the rest of my report, I'll do it quickly. The next 4 zoning hearing board applications, you heard from me talk about them last time. They were reviewed, considered, and approved at the last meeting of the zoning hearing board, 712 Talmenson Avenue. That was a dimensional variance, residential, 212 Church, special exception, that's secure storage, a new building behind the existing building. 1249 Scobie, residential, to approve an elevated deck in the rear yard setback. 203 Church, LI zoning to for dimensional variances to permit the development of 2 warehouse buildings. That was approved. 1258 Jarvis, residential rear yard variance to allow a expansion of a screened porch. Those 5 were already reviewed. Any questions on those 5? Okay. For those, the next 3 are for those new ones, which are going to be heard to check my calendar, July 25th, the 4th Tuesday in July. 407 Carmichael Drive. Variance to allow an unroofed deck to extend within the required rear yard. Dimensional in nature, residentially zoned. 825 Ridge Drive. Variance to permit a rear yard, again, an extension for a elevated deck. Ridgeview Drive, variance to allow an elevated deck. 783 Keith Lane. This is unusual because I don't remember ever seeing one before, but this is a variance to permit a fence to be located within a clear sight triangle with between Keith and Barry Avenue. It's unusual in that it's a corner. Our traffic consultant has looked at it and does not see this particular variance as a problem relative to sight distance, to the safety of sight distance. Low traffic, low volume road. And then finally, 645 Town Pike, minor 2-lot subdivision was resubmitted it's been approved, I think, subject to catching up on all the details. Staff is looking at it now, and I think this would come back to you for final. Has this been reviewed finally yet? Approved finally? Yeah, but has the board approved it yet? No. Okay, so you'll see it perhaps next month. This is the 2-lot subdivision, Town Pike. Okay, I'm finished. Anything else you need from me? Thank you.
Thank you. Isaac?
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Our monthly engineering report is attached for the ongoing projects in the township. And one thing we wanted to just mention for this month's meeting was that the road program obviously is currently underway for this year. They've completed a lot of the 88 ramps. That's part of the contract. They're continuing to complete the ones currently in the Rexdale development. The paving is originally was scheduled to start yesterday. That's been adjusted to start this upcoming Monday, the 26th, which will begin on South Broad Street between Garfield and Town Pike. We thank the crew and staff at Merck. They'll be coordinated with their entrances as they go along there. And they'll be also paving Hancock Road between North Wales Road and the athletic fields, Forest Lane and Amity Lane. So we just like to remind folks when they'll be out there. We'll provide updates if there's any adjustments to their schedule as they get going. And we do ask folks just to be patient if they are in those areas while they're milling and paving. It's large equipment that does that kind of work. There is likely to be some traffic control as they progress down those roads. And we try to keep that as safe for the public as possible as those big machines are trucking along. Need some patience there. They don't take too long to pave the roads, but the more they can have the space to do so, the quicker it goes. So, other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are curbs and ramps in the same areas that you're doing the streets?
Say that again.
Are the curbs and ramps in the same areas where you're milling the streets?
Not entirely, no. Most of them are not. The ones on Hancock Road, the ramps were already completed. We do work with staff to do the curb ramps in areas that are forecasted to be paved about a year or two down the line. And that's just so there's not a conflict with the schedule of the concrete crews and the paving crews. So the work on, for example, South Broad Street, those ramps were completed last year. And this year they're coming through to finish the road paving.
This might be a crazy question, but why are some streets, the ramps, where there's no sidewalks? I'm just asking because I've noticed them all. There's one on my block, so just asking.
Yeah, I'd have to kind of look at a intersection by intersection basis there.
This one is at West Point and Park Road.
All right.
There is no sidewalk.
You remember the book where the sidewalk ends?
Sidewalk
That's-
there.
Yeah.
I'll say on the township side, when we look at our roads, if there's connectivity, and access for folks to get off the road to walk, that's where we look to do ramps. We don't really look to do ramps where there isn't sidewalk connections. Sometimes there's a corner that would be kind of a resting area for folks that are making their way around. I can't speak to PennDOT roads. They tend to like to have the ramps at every corner that is involved with their signals. And sometimes you have, has been called the ramps to nowhere. But they have been getting away from that a bit. So there may be a few around, but on average, usually it's to connect the sidewalk.
Okay.
Commissioner Carter, I had a question from a resident that I've been speaking to for the past couple of weeks about why we have to replace the ADA ramps so frequently, which is another, the residents see that there's a perfectly good ramp and then we come in and bust it up. And that's actually to comply with the ADA laws. Anytime we mill or overlay a street, we have to update all of the ramps to be the most current ADA requirements. So I just did all that research for my one resident friend that emails me a lot and came up with that answer. So it's interesting to know so people don't think we're just doing it for no reason. We are doing it for a reason to comply with the ADA laws.
It's true. They do update those I think the last big update was 2010. So some neighborhoods that have ramps that are much older, their standards are out of date, and they update it for accessibility of, whether it's folks that can't step up the curb, folks in, wheelchairs that can't get up on a curb there. It also looks at inabilities for like the sight impaired. You see the mats with the bumps on them. Those are for folks that it can let them know they're coming to an intersection there. So they update the standards every once in a while. And as Sandra mentioned, when we look at doing the roads, if they're out of date, we'll look to make sure they're current with the standards that are currently out there.
Thank you.
I have a question for Isaac. I'm sorry. The Meadowbrook, now that we've gotten some rain, Meadowbrook, White Oak, how is that? Is that, because I know we did it and it was a dry spell for a while. So is that back up and running?
Yes, the work out there has been completed. So it has a swale that takes the water off of Oakland, on the Oakland and Meadowbrook intersection there. And during some of these really hard rains, where prior to our work, it had flowed across the properties, we've observed that it's working very well and has already gotten some positive feedback from the property owners right around the project area that they've seen a difference already in those storms that we've had.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on, we're into a motion to approve the staff department reports. We have a motion. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? Any other reports? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have a motion to approve the public meetings minutes of May 9th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do you have any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's passed unanimously. Next, we have a motion to approve the public meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2023.
So moved.
Do you have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Motion to accept and authorize the township solicitor to sign the tax assessment and appeal settlement. Lauren, would you like to have any comments on that?
Certainly. This comes from the board from time to time. This is a settlement of an outstanding tax assessment appeal from 2021. The school district has taken the lead in negotiating a settlement with the property owned by Dean Dairy LLC, located at 880 Allentown Road. Current assessment of the property is $3,966,440. The stipulation will increase that assessment for the property beginning January 1st, 2002, to $6,067,300, resulting in an indicated market value of $13,573,378. And then effective January 1st, 2023, the assessment shall be increased to $5,488,190, resulting in an indicated market value of $13,859,066. and that is where the assessment will remain in subsequent years. What this means for the township is a total net revenue, net tax revenue increase for $3,937.01 for 2022, and an additional $2,851.76 for 2023. And then that increase will continue in perpetuity.
Thank you, Lauren. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have a motion to appoint Frank Schwartz to Human Relations Commission.
So moved.
Do you have a second? We have a motion and a second. We have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Motion to appoint Mark Smith to the Environmental Advisory Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have any board comments? Any
I have
public?
a comment.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I can hear the questions that the audience asks, so I love to be able to answer them when I hear them. And I think I heard someone ask if either of these were residents, and I just wanted to point out that both Frank Schwartz and Mark Smith are residents. That's a requirement to serve on our boards and commissions.
Yes, they are.
And also, just Megan, do you mind clicking on one of the links? So behind all of our blue links, you can see that we have memos that outline each action that the board has taken. So it outlines how we advertise for the positions, then they're interviewed, and then go before the board for appointment. So just a moment to clarify the process.
Yes. I was part of the interviews for Frank Schwartz. Very nice gentleman, retired lawyer.
We were on Mark Smith.
Got it. Do we have any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. I have a motion to approve the retirement agreement between Officer Number 47, the Upper Gwynedd Township Police Association, and the Upper Gwynedd Township.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passes unanimously. Motion to approve the honorable discharge of badge number 47 from the Upper Gwynedd Township Police Department. We will be honoring him at a later date. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a second and a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Motion to approve the adoption of the Montgomery County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Sandra, would you like to explain some of that?
Sure. Every 5 years, Montgomery County updates their hazard mitigation plan. The plan is intended to minimize or eliminate long-term risks to human life and property from known hazards by identifying and implementing cost-effective mitigation actions. FEMA requires that a hazard mitigation be in place and updated every 5 years. And that is what we're doing. The county then sends it to the municipalities to adopt so that we can qualify for future pre and post disaster mitigation funding.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. I'll turn the meeting over to Commissioner Damsker.
We're up to item 20 on the agenda. And I'd like to make a motion to approve WB Homes Wheatley Walk escrow release number 3 in the amount of $63,185.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Item 21, I'd like to make a motion to ratify Merck waiver request for relief from Chapter 124-5 and 113-1 for after-hours construction on West Point Pike to perform road opening, excavation, pipe installation, and paving work for a new water main between June 5th to the 9th and June 12th to the 16th, 2023.
So Ruth is making the motion. Martha, you're seconding the motion. And I just want to comment to make clear that this is a ratification since those dates already passed.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do you have any public comments?
And then item,
I'm not finished.
oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes unanimously. Now you can continue.
Yeah, now, item 22, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Merck waiver request for relief from Chapter 124-5 and 113-1 for extended work hours from July 3rd, December 31st, 2023 for general site work.
Do we have a second? No, she did the motion. Oh, you just said
I did the motion, she said,
No.
Made the motion.
Martha said,
seconded the motion.
yes.
And I think that
Okay, I think that I've
we have a
completed.
motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments?
Okay, so
I was gonna ask that question.
463A.
Well, my question was,
yes, it would have been awfully broad.
I was just gonna ask a question that we normally, for the extended work hours, they're not usually for such a long period, from July 3rd through December 31st. Is there a reason why they're not? Usually they're smaller time spans when they come through the calendars.
What we have been doing on the,
Yeah, you can get it.
It'll be
you can get-
easier for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
there we go. What we normally have been doing for the larger buildings is getting a blanket waiver for a number of months. We've done this on the last 3 buildings because we're never sure exactly when extended hours are required. So we ask for it for a longer period of time and only use it when we need to.
And only for the building that you're asking
Only for the specific building that we're asking
Right,
for. Each of these buildings are kind of buried in the middle of the site, so you don't really see the activity, but we want to follow the rules and ask for relief.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes unanimously. I'll turn the meeting over now to Commissioner McNaney, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. I'd like to figure out a way we can do consent items for these meetings, or we're only going to have one. Because I haven't done this many in a long time.
Sorry, remember there was a time where we had no consent agenda.
I remember.
This is just a trip down memory lane.
I know, because I looked at this and I was like, wow, that's a lot. All right. Item number 23 is a motion to ratify the approval of the 2023 concession stand lease contract with Little's Ice Cream and Water Ice. That's the concession stand out by the pool. The business that has done it for years told us in May that they were no longer going to continue running it. So the Parks and Recs, Sarah and others got creative and put the word out, and Little's Ice Cream has stepped up. So I'd like to make a motion to ratify the approval of the concession stand lease.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments?
Samples?
They have a stand in North Wales Route.
Do we have any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes unanimously.
The next is a motion to approve the Philly bike ride for Ride, I'm going to say it wrong. How do I say that, Sandra? Ataxia. Bike ride on Sunday, October 8th, from 10 a.m. to 1:30. And from the maps that are included in our packet, it would just impact us via Morris Road. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the race on October 8th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Next is a motion, item number 25, is a motion to approve the Stormwater Best Management Practices O&M Agreement for 1245 Jarvis Lane. I do have a question about this. Why is this under my part, Sandra? I read through it and I didn't know, I didn't know if it had to do with Public Works for some reason, but
Well, I think typically sometimes we put these in the land and zoning, but other times we put them in Public Works. Stormwater is a Public Works and land zoning issue.
all right, so I'm making a motion to approve the Stormwater Best Management Practice O&M Agreement.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Item number 26 is a motion to approve the payment number 1 to Armour and Sons for the streetlight procurement program in the amount of $66,476.25.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do you have any public comments? Deanna, will you do a roll call, please?
Vice President Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner McNaney,
Aye.
Commissioner Similaro. Aye. Commissioner Damsker.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 27 is a motion to approve payment number 2 for the Newport Lane Basin retrofit to Stonewood Landscaping, Inc. in the amount of $6,615. My comment on this one is I appreciate all the residents who live there keeping us updated on what's happening out there because they see it daily. And your last response, Isaac, was great. And so if I know they're all watching, if they have anything further, I hope they continue to reach out to us so that we can explain everything. And I believe in your memo, in this memo, it says the work's going to start tomorrow and Thursday for the regrading.
That is the contractor's schedule. Yep, to finish up that there. It's tomorrow, Thursday. And then the raking and reseeding of the access way from the cul-de-sac would follow with that, with watering it for the grass growth.
All right. So I make a motion to approve the payment, number 2.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? Deanna, will you please do the roll call?
Vice President Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner McNaney,
Aye.
Commissioner Similaro. Aye. Commissioner Damsker.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next is the motion to approve the order for the 2024 E450 cutaway chassis from CoStars, vendor Bergey's Ford, in the amount of $44,685. And that is a item that we did have budgeted. So a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do you have any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Or none? Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 29 is next. Megan, can you pop that up? That's a motion to approve the release of the RFP for the Parks and Rec Comprehensive Plan in order to advertise for a bid for a new Parks and Rec comp plan. And we've had one meeting so far with the group that wants to be part of this plan. It's everybody that reached out to be on that. We're lucky that they all still want to be on it. So we have a nice group, including a former commissioner is going to be on that group, and which is great because of his knowledge of the community. So and a lot of other residents. So I'm looking forward to getting started with that. And our first step will be the RFP for that to guide us in that plan. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the release of the RFP.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Similaro, you don't have anything under your section?
No, we don't, but I have a PSA.
Yes.
Just want to do a quick PSA for the wastewater treatment plant. And I say this several times during the year, but I'm going to expand on it a tad tonight. Wipes do not go down the toilet. Even though they say they're flushables, please do not put them down the toilet because they clog up the pipes and they clog up the screens that go into the wastewater treatment plant, which our guys have to clean all the time. But in addition to the wipes, there are many other things that people tend to put down the toilet or the sewer, such as plastic tops, floss adapters, small bottles, toys, rags, and in one case we had paint.
We know who the toy culprits are.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking once again to please watch what you put down either the sewer or your toilets. Basically, they're only meant for toilet paper, so we can help our wastewater treatment guys make their jobs a little bit easier because it's not easy cleaning the screens when that's the first step in the process. Basically, when you flush the toilet, it goes down the pipe and it gets to the screen. And it's not easy for our guys to clean those screens all the time. So just please watch what you're putting down the toilet and the sewers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Similaro. Now we have the approval of our June 2023 open invoices. Do we have a motion do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? Deanna, can you please do a roll call?
Vice President Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner McNaney,
Aye.
Commissioner Similaro,
Aye.
Commissioner Damsker,
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Now we have approval of our June 2023 paid invoices. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? Deanna, can you please do a roll call on this also?
Vice President Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner McNaney,
Aye.
Commissioner Similaro,
Aye.
Commissioner Damsker.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Any other comments or questions from the board?
I have one. July 12th, from 1 to 2 o'clock in this room, I will be having office hours in lieu of, since we don't have a workshop meeting in July. I'm here from 1 to 2. I was here in June in lieu of the 14th, 13th. I was here from 6:30 to 7:30. Nobody came, so come join me. And then I'll have them again on August 14th from 6:30 to 7:30. And it's just an informal way. Again, I'm making myself available to answer any questions. So I'll be here on those dates, and it's also on our Facebook pages and stuff. And one more thing, the Unplugged Week was a huge success. It was a lot of fun, heard lots of great feedback of the activities that we did. I also heard the first concert. A young man that I know who's 26 years old took his niece there and had the best time. It was better than going to a bar in Sea Isle, he said. So it's fun for all ages. Our concert series, so I encourage people to come out to them. And Unplugged Week, again, another great thing. And looks like the summer camp has kicked off well, and things are exciting for our kids in the community. So that's all I have for tonight.
You know, it's a good week when you have like 15 people turn out for yogurt with the manager. That's how you know it was a good week. It was really fun.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. I'd like to thank Sarah and her team for all the fun for Unplugged Week, the police, the K-9 unit that showed up for Unplugged Week. Thank you, Chief Duffy, for participating. It was just a wonderful week. I was there helping with the paste and the many stickers and tattoos that the kids wanted all the way up their arm. And also, this week, my grandkids are on the, what is it called?
Teen trip camp.
Teen trip camp. Yesterday they were at the beach. Today they were paintballing. So Parks and Recreation are doing a wonderful job of activities for the kids. So thank you, Sarah and her team. Call for adjournment. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a wonderful evening.